I want to switch things over to Kathleen Coviello, our Chief Economic Transformation Officer.
Great, thanks so much, Caitlin. Great to be with everyone today. Excited to kick us off for this morning's session. I think what you're going to hear today is a new and unique and different approach to how we support the innovation economy in the state of New Jersey. These tax credits that we're going to talk about and the auction associated with them is like nothing we've ever done before in the state of New Jersey. We're really taking what we've done historically around tax credits and turning it on its head. And that's what you're going to hear about from the team today. So the folks that purchase the tax credits, it's going to give you a ticket at the innovation table in the state of New Jersey. It's also going to put you in the driver's seat. You get to decide as the auction bidder how much you want to buy and what you're going to do to engage in the innovation economy as part of qualifying for those tax credits. So we welcome you to learn more about this and to ask us questions. But we think you're going to be quite interested to hear how this is such a different approach from anything we've done in the past. What we're going to talk about today is, as we've said, the Evergreen Fund. Now, this fund is part of a larger spectrum of products that was launched by Governor Murphy under the Economic Recovery Act. It is actually a suite of 15 products. And the Evergreen Fund is really at the heart of it. You may have been watching over the last year and a half as we've worked to create these new programs that were created through legislature and signed into law by the governor. So things like the Emerge Tax Credit Program that helps attract businesses to the state is an earned tax credit. What you're going to hear today on the Evergreen auction is a purchase tax credit where you set the pricing and you set the mechanism of support. Also, under that Economic Recovery Act are things like support for developers to help grow projects and create projects in the state of New Jersey. Things like taking programs that we've had on the table and increasing the bandwidth on them. So many of you might be familiar with our net operating loss program. Again, different type of program where emerging companies sell their losses. This initiative around the Evergreen Fund brings together those young companies, but in a very different way by bringing corporate taxpayers in the state and venture capitalists to the table. So we welcome your feedback. We welcome your questions. I'm going to turn it over to the team. Just wanted to do a little level setting for you all on how this was created and why we're so excited about this at the center of innovation for the state of New Jersey. So Tim Rollander, our Director of Venture Programs, is going to take us through the deck and give you a little bit more detail on the Evergreen auction. Tim, over to you.
Thank you very much, Kathleen. Appreciate that. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be with you. I'm Tim Rollander. I'm the Director of Venture Programs here at the EDA, and I'm joined by my colleagues from the Venture Programs team, Alexander Packman and Emmanuel Esochai. And we very much appreciate the chance to present the overview of the New Jersey Innovation Evergreen Fund auction component today. So we appreciate the chance to give you the overview and really at this point in the process begin to unveil how the mechanics of the program will work. So it's an opportunity for you to ask questions and for us to provide a broad-based and more detailed overview on the program as we look to open up the program Q&A period in the coming weeks and towards the formal open of the application later this summer. So with that, usually when I start talking about the Evergreen program, it's an opportunity to kind of talk about, an epic story that was New Jersey as sort of the birthplace of innovation, starting out with a long time ago in a state very near and dear to our hearts. The slide that you see before you presents is basically built as an attempt to display innovation using venture capital dollars as a proxy. New Jersey, as I think we all know, has been a leader in innovation going back in the 50s and 60s to companies like Bell Labs and SRI, and actually including a number of folks that are actually representatives of companies on this call today. Over the years, we know venture capital has kind of blown to the winds and coalesced in places like Silicon Valley and Boston, but times are changing. Whereas if you go back a decade ago, New Jersey was number 16 in terms of deployment of dollars of venture capital in the nation. Today, we're seeing a market that's much more coalescing around regional venture hubs throughout the nation. Folks in Cincinnati or Pittsburgh or Austin, and certainly including New Jersey, are seeing more of a resurgence of capital deployment because, frankly, innovation can occur anywhere. So today, we are proud to recognize New Jersey has jumped into the top 10 in terms of dollars of venture capital deployment, and that's where we set the stage from here. When we think about sort of the new market of what is the sort of innovation today, we think about companies that are displayed on this slide. For example, Cross River Bank, which is a New Jersey-based company, has seen investment from high-quality investors like Andreessen Horowitz, or Misfits Market, which I think you know is probably the misshapen produce company that's based here in New Jersey, has seen traction from Excel Partners. But we've also seen action from strategic or corporate acquirers in the form of Willis Towers Watson purchasing Transact, or Gilead purchasing Immunomedics, for example. So it truly points to an upward trajectory in the volume and the number of frankly unicorns that we're seeing in New Jersey, which is a real mark of innovation in some of these high quality companies. So that brings us to what is the Evergreen Fund and why Evergreen now? As Kathleen itemized, its program was built out of the Economic Recovery Act of 2020, and is really a novel platform built from familiar economic development mechanisms. We'll walk through the program in 3 parts with you, focusing on the auction piece of it, but to reiterate, the program is basically built to facilitate more of a virtuous cycle of innovation, if you will, by connecting the large strategic corporations based here in New Jersey, high quality venture capital firms anywhere in the nation, but investing here in New Jersey, and the early stage venture capital businesses that are growing up right here in the state of New Jersey. The idea is that by providing this formal linkage through financial but also strategic alignment, there's the opportunity to bring all these parties together and really foster more of that innovation that we're looking for. So what does it mean for the corporations that would participate in the tax credit auction? One, we're looking to facilitate more engagement for you and from you in the state of New Jersey. We are very proud of the corporations that are based here and very proud of the opportunity to serve as a mouthpiece or a platform to help drive that engagement, to talk about the initiatives that you have underway, or to support formation of new initiatives that will help build the high growth companies here in the state of New Jersey. 2, we're looking to support greater engagement in a broader community, basically engaging again with those high quality venture capital firms and those early stage businesses, but expanding out beyond and to see what sort of value can be created for the public from an innovation perspective. And last but certainly not least, the chance for the corporations based here in New Jersey to recognize a discount on their tax credits of up to 25%, which is really the start of the program, if you will. So Kathleen gave an overview of the agenda before. We'll talk about the auction in broad context, and I'll hand it over to Alexander to talk about the strategic commitment component of the program and the application and evaluation, because that's truly the most novel piece of the program. And we want to make sure that you all know EDA is here to serve as a support and liaison function to help you create and walk through this piece of the program, basically. So if there's one slide to present on the program, it's slide number 8 here, which really breaks out the fact that the Evergreen program is a 3-legged stool, if you will. The program starts with the chance to sell up to $300 million of tax credits from the state treasury directly to large corporations in the state of New Jersey in exchange for a minimum purchase price of 75 cents on the dollar. Along with that strategic commitment, which is really a ticket to the auction, if you will. In parts 2 and 3 of the program, we'll look to qualify venture capital firms who would utilize these dollars to invest in high growth companies in the state of New Jersey. And then in stage 3 of the program, we'll look to qualify venture early stage businesses that will use the dollars from the venture capital firms to grow up here in New Jersey, basically. Those pieces will come online later this year, and we would likely host similar information sessions, but today we're keenly focused on the auction component of the program. So why would a corporation participate in the program? Number one, it's an opportunity for a corporation to purchase the tax credit at a discount, essentially prepaying your tax liability in the state of New Jersey upfront, right? The tax credit is viable for the current privilege period in which the tax credit is approved, and we'll talk about the schedule as we get to the back end of the program. And we would, and the tax credit is eligible to be carried forward for the next 7 privilege periods. So that's number one. Once a corporation purchases the tax credit, that is yours. There is no compliance piece on that, like there is on the strategic commitment. And we hope that will resound throughout the program. We are doing our best to make this program as attractive as possible to garner the participation of really high caliber corporations in the state of New Jersey. And that's I think starts at the outset with offering up a tax credit that's yours. You purchase it and you walk away from it. 2, it's the opportunity to leverage an ESG platform from the Evergreen program. Basically, again, the opportunity to put forward your strategic commitments, to talk about your strategic initiatives in the state, and your efforts to bolster the innovation economy in New Jersey. It brings forward the alignment with New Jersey's goals to build the most diverse innovation economy in the nation. We do hope that, or we assume that companies are already doing so many great initiatives here. And again, it's an opportunity for us to join up and be able to talk about those initiatives and move forward together. The program, of course, brings access from the corporations to the investment firms, as well as the early stage businesses that are looking to grow here in New Jersey. So hopefully those large corporations can recognize a strong R&D pipeline or a potential M&A pipeline at the latter stages of the program. And then third, we're hopeful that corporations will be able to recognize and identify market insights that they might not otherwise have by engaging with these venture capital firms who are investing not only in New Jersey, but in other parts of the nation. Basically understand what are they seeing in the West Coast and mid-market, middle America regions. So again, building that strong platform out of the Evergreen program. So sorry, 1 second here about this. So practically speaking, I'll offer a high view of what does the auction look like. I will then turn it over to Alexander to go in depth into the next 2 sections, basically. But from a high level, in the assuming application open on August 1st, the program will basically offer corporations the opportunity to submit a bid of a minimum $500,000 to purchase a tax credit at a minimum purchase price of 75 cents on the dollar. In addition, the corporation is going to put forward a strategic commitment, which is an open-ended proposition to support the innovation economy in New Jersey. Again, Alexander will roll through a few examples of that as well to help illustrate this very novel concept. In the weeks following the official submission, EDA staff will conduct our review to ensure completeness, compliance with the requirements of the program. We will score all of the bids, and we will have the opportunity to go back to the purchasers to understand, in a circumstance where we are oversubscribed, purchasers may look to increase and put forward a best and final offer on either or both their financial or strategic commitment. In the case the program is undersubscribed, it would also give the opportunity for those companies with the highest bids or the highest scores to be able to purchase additional allocation that may be available. Following that best and final offer period, EDA will re-rank and rescore and look to award the winners of the program in likely November is the timeline here. The objective in this case is to complete the program of the review period within the current privilege period so that companies may utilize the tax credit right away. I'll pass it over to Alexander from here. So Alexander, you've got control of the slides, okay?
Great. So I'm sure everyone's dying to know what is a strategic commitment. So let's just jump right into Section 3, our strategic commitment overview. As Tim mentioned, strategic commitments are companies' initiatives organized around supporting New Jersey's innovation ecosystem. They're the ticket to the auction. So a company must put forth some strategic commitment in order to be able to purchase tax credits. So you can think of it as, not only am I the company buying tax credits with dollars, but I'm also putting forth some sweat equity in the form of a program or initiative to support New Jersey's innovation ecosystem. We're leaving the shape that these commitments take as completely open-ended, recognizing that companies are coming from different starting points and have different goals about how they see themselves supporting the community and best integrating into the innovation ecosystem. That being said, we do offer 4 suggested buckets of or categories of potential strategic commitments. For example, a commitment could take the shape of people. It could be an internship program, giving more access to STEM career pathways. It could be a mentorship event for founders, or commitments could take the shape of an ecosystem event. It could be a networking event bringing founders and investors and potential strategic purchasers together, or judging one of the great accelerator pitch competitions we have here in New Jersey. Commitments could take the shape of investments, investing dollars directly into startups or into wonderful organizations that we have here in New Jersey that function as ecosystem enablers, nonprofits, universities, investor groups. Or finally, companies may put forth a strategic commitment that takes the shape of a marketing initiative to help shine a spotlight on the New Jersey Innovation Evergreen Fund program or on the innovation ecosystem at large. So to further help folks think through what type of commitment may make sense for their own company, and also think through what types of offerings or programs are currently in place at my company that could be shapen into a strategic commitment, we present 2 case studies of things that we're seeing today in the marketplace that really we view as down the middle strategic commitments for this program. However, we encourage companies, and we'll offer a bunch of other examples, but we encourage companies to really think through what makes the most sense for them. And we, again, intentionally left this open-ended. That being said, let's zoom in on case study 1, which we'll use as an illustrative example to explain some of the key components of this program and of the application. A great venture-backed company up in the northern part of our state recently announced a wonderful partnership with a nonprofit focused on supporting New Jersey's innovation ecosystem to establish a women and minority business owners mentorship cohort. In addition to providing senior staff members time coaching these founders, this company also committed to writing checks, grant checks, to support these founders and sponsor their participation in doing a presentation at a large innovation festival we have here in this state. So sticking with case study 1, me, the applicant, a company, what kind of information would I expect to put forth as I detail my strategic commitment in the application? And I'd focus your attention to begin at the table at the bottom of the screen. Importantly, companies will be telling us, the EDA, how much these strategic commitments cost. So if we go back to our example of providing mentorship hours to the diverse and women-led business founders cohort, a company may commit to providing 10 hours of 3 senior staff members' time over a 12-month period. And if they value or estimate the cost of that, an hour of those staff members' times at $100 per hour, the individual component of that strategic commitment's cost would be $3,000. Now, why is this $3,000 important? It not only relates to the potential scoring of the strategic commitment, but also relates to compliance, which we'll get into in more detail in a moment. Now, at the time of application, not only will be companies demonstrating what the cost of a commitment is, but they'll also be telling the EDA when these commitments will be completed, and importantly, what verification documents they'll provide to the EDA at the time of completion. Now, this may seem like a lot of thinking through up front, but our strong goal is that this will allow us to have a very smooth compliance process going forward once the initiatives are underway. It should be as simple as executing a commitment and providing the documents that companies identified up front at the time that they anticipated the strategic commitment would be completed. Now, if it takes longer than expected to complete a commitment, companies will have an additional year to cure. If at that time they're still unable to complete that commitment, then the amount of money they owe the EDA will be capped and limited to the cost of that commitment. So for going back to our mentorship cohort example, if after a year past the expected completion date, if the company was only able to provide 5 of the 10 hours of the mentorship office hours, they would owe the EDA $1,500. Now we highlight this point because once a company buys those tax credits, those are their tax credits. They've paid for them. However, the compliance and ongoing monitoring is relating and limited to the strategic commitments themselves. The other thing I'd highlight on this slide is that applicants will be asked to break down their strategic commitments into individual components. So thinking through our case study 1, the mentorship office hours would be one component, and the grant funding to attend the Innovation Festival would be a second component. And these components will be scored independently, and the total strategic commitment score will be the weighted average of the scores of those 2 components. So let's think through some other potential examples of strategic commitments. There's almost an infinite number of ways that companies can support New Jersey's innovation ecosystem. So this is a non-exhaustive list, of course, but really just meant to help catalyze the ideation process. So for example, companies may choose to join the New Jersey chapter of Golden Seeds, which is an angel investing syndicate focused on investing in women-led businesses. Once a month, the New Jersey chapter of Golden Seeds convenes to hold office hours where women founders pitch their businesses to a roundtable of potential investors. And importantly, this roundtable of investors also not only consider a potential investment, but provide important feedback and coaching to these founders. Companies may put forth a strategic commitment to support an innovation ecosystem nonprofit. We have some wonderful partner groups already focused on supporting New Jersey's innovation ecosystem here in the state, and we'll actually talk through some potential partner groups in the next slide. But these groups are always looking for new corporate partners to plug into to help put together a program and an initiative, either by providing time or money to support some great strategic commitment to help grow New Jersey's innovation ecosystem. Companies could take on STEM interns here in the state, building that pipeline of potential future founders. You could also sponsor an innovation case study competition for university students. Really, the potential list is endless and is only capped by our collective imagination.
Alexander, if I could just jump in really
Please.
quick. As Alexander mentioned, the list is open-ended. What we would like to highlight, and I'll drop a link in the chat of our brochure for other examples of strategic commitments. We've taken the time to think through other possible scenarios, and hopefully that'll kind of churn some thought, but we welcome a conversation with you to kind of drive additional thought around this. Your strategic commitment is, of course, going to be unique to you, we assume. It may be something that you are already doing to support the innovation economy, to support your own initiatives, and we want to be able to highlight that. It could be something that's totally brand new, and we are here to try and help facilitate that with you as well, actually. So when you have a chance, please go ahead and click on the link. We'll also be able to provide you with a follow-up email to that auction pamphlet as well, that strategic commitment example as well.
Yeah, thanks for that plug, Tim. So here in New Jersey, we're really fortunate to have some wonderful organizations that work hard every day to build out New Jersey's innovation ecosystem. And these organizations are, potential wonderful partners for companies to help execute and put together a strategic bid. Of course, this is a non-exhaustive list, but really just, a sample to help folks get the wheels turning a little bit. So we have some wonderful nonprofits like Tech United and Digital Undivided that work hard every day to help grow New Jersey's innovation ecosystem. Some wonderful accelerators and incubators here in the state like VentureLink and Tech Launch that are always putting together events, networking events, pitch competitions. There's really a lot of ways that companies can plug in and help support the innovation ecosystem. There's some wonderful entrepreneurship centers at all the great universities we have here in New Jersey, like the Keller Center at Princeton or the Rowan University Center for Innovation and Entrepreneurship. And as I mentioned earlier, there's some great angel investor groups like Golden Seeds or Jumpstart New Jersey. So the next section of our presentation will just provide a snapshot as to what the application will look like, a little bit of a roadmap, and we'll talk through in more detail how the scoring of bids will take place. So the first section of the application is really largely consistent across many of the EDA's programs. We call this our common application, where we collect generic information about the applicant, like contact information, organizational information, a legal questionnaire, etc. The second component of the application will be oriented around the financial bid. This is a tax credit auction, so of course, the EDA will need to collect information about how many tax credits an applicant would like to purchase and the price they're willing to pay for those tax credits. So for example, if an applicant would like to purchase $10 million of tax credits and is willing to pay 75 cents on the dollar for those tax credits, their total purchase offer would be $7.5 million. And that's the amount they would owe the EDA. And then lastly, and this is the novel component of this auction, the company will need to, or the applicant will need to detail their strategic commitment. They'll be we'll be breaking down, as I mentioned, commitments into individual components. Many applications will only have one component to their strategic commitment, which is completely fine. So these applicants will put forth the title of their strategic commitment, target date of completion. They'll describe the commitment. They'll tell us when this commitment is expected to be completed. And then lastly, they'll provide a cost estimate and supporting documents to support that cost estimate about that strategic commitment. There'll then be a series of questions relating to the 10 scoring categories for commitments so that the EDA can collect the information it needs to score these commitments. And in the next slide, we'll talk through how these 10 scoring categories will work through an example. But to provide a high-level overview before we double-click, these 10 categories are things like external partners. How many external partners is the commitment engaging to support New Jersey's innovation ecosystem? How long is the commitment? Some commitments may be 6 months. Some may span multiple years. Again, this is entirely open-ended, but we'll be awarding more points for commitments that last longer. Similarly, we'll be awarding more points for commitments that occur more often. Some commitments may be once a year, some may be every month, but those that are every month will earn more points than those that are once a year.
And again, if I could just jump in really quickly before Alexander does get into the scoring component, just wanted to point out that a readable version of the application will be available within the next week or so. We're more than happy to share it with the folks who've registered for this call. Of course, it will be posted on our website, and it will open a formal Q&A period. GDA can take can take questions from the public and put out an FAQ to be able to answer those questions in advance. And then just before Alexander gets into the scoring piece of it, we definitely want to remind people that this is a public program. It was approved through the Economic Recovery Act. The scoring is built to be as transparent as possible. We do this for the sake of helping you understand the worthwhile nature of the program, as well as creating efficiency in the program down the road, basically. A corporation should be able to essentially score themselves through the rubric that we post on the website. Of course, we'll be glad to work with you and be able to talk you through the composition of a strategic commitment when the time comes. So.
Thank you, Tim. And another important plug is that our scoring methodology for the program is already publicly available on our website. So you can log in, go online, and take a look at what this scoring methodology and these 10 scoring categories are and how they work. Now, returning back to our first case study of providing these mentorship office hours to a diverse and women-led founder cohort and providing grant funding so that these founders can attend the New Jersey Innovation Festival. Let's double click on how the scoring will actually work within these 10 categories by focusing on one, for example. How about duration of strategic commitment? So under this category, applicants will earn 1 point if the duration of the commitment is less than a year, 2 points if the commitment will span between 1 and 2 years, or 3 points if the commitment spans more than 3 years. In this case, the commitment was envisioned to span 1 year, so the applicant would earn 2 points for this category. the way that the scoring will work is we'll add up the raw score from each of these 10 categories and divide by 60 to get to a strategic score. Why 60? It's really just a scaling mechanism. The most important aspect or weight of the scoring is one's financial bid score. At most, a strategic commitment score can achieve a score of 0.5, which in the most extreme scenario could only represent 1/3 of a total bid score. So the way the total scoring will work is by adding a strategic bid score with a financial bid score. And again, the vast majority of those points are coming from the financial bid score. So if I could direct your attention to the bottom of the slide, where we see a strategic final score of 0.2, that would be added to a financial bid score of 0.75 to get to a total bid score of 0.95. How does one get a financial bid score? This 0.75 would just be the purchase price the applicant was willing to pay for $1 of tax credits. So in this case, they'd be willing to pay 75 cents on the dollar for their tax credits. And that's how they arrive at a financial bid score of 0.75. So again, we add that to the strategic final score of 0.2 to get to a total bid score of 0.95. And this is the score that applicants will be, that will be used to rank applicants' scores against each other to determine who's the highest scoring bidder if we enter a prorated scenario, an oversubscribed auction, where we need to cut back folks' requests based on their total score. The applicants that score the highest will be cut back the least. But our goal is that everyone who applies for tax credits with a viable bid will receive at least $500,000 of tax credits, which is the minimum amount that can be purchased from this program, with the caveat that if we have over 120 applicants, of course, since we're only authorized to sell $60 million of tax credits through this auction, there are some companies that wouldn't receive tax credits at that point if they were scored below 120. So I alluded to some of these concepts earlier. What does post-approval engagement or compliance look like? The board of the EDA will actually be approving the tax credit auction bids. And at that point, applicants will enter into a contract with the EDA through a tax purchase agreement that outlines some of the details about expectations. And from there, the Division of Taxation will be issuing physical tax credit certificates to the purchasers. As I mentioned, the ongoing compliance is really just related to the strategic commitment. Purchasers must complete at least 80% of each strategic commitment component, or as I mentioned earlier, needs to repay the EDA the difference between the amount of that commitment component that was completed and the total cost of that commitment component. So again, if the company only was able to complete 5 of their expected 10 office hour sessions, they would owe the EDA the difference between the $3,000 cost of that commitment and the $1,500 of that commitment that was completed. Next, all bidders will also be nominating and must nominate a representative to sit on the New Jersey Innovation Evergreen Advisory Board. We don't envision this being a very large time commitment, and we really hope that this is a two-way street where companies are sitting on the advisory board and attending the quarterly meetings and providing important feedback to the EDA and other auction participants about how the program is going, how strategic commitments are going, how companies can best integrate into the innovation ecosystem, and in turn, also get a seat at the innovation table, as Kathleen put it, form important networks within the innovation economy, and really get a lot out of participating in the program. Lastly, the EDA is committed to making sure that this is really a white glove experience for tax credit purchasers, and will be in fact hiring an ecosystem engagement manager specifically to liaise with companies about the completion of their strategic commitments, the design of their strategic commitments, and to help program advisory board meetings to make sure they're as effective as possible. So next, I'll hand it off to Tim to talk through some of the next steps of the program.
Thank you very much, Alexander. I will flip us to the next slide. We're in the home stretch here. What you see before you is an approximate corporate auction timeline slide. This details how we anticipate the next several months playing out to be able to open the auction, conduct our reviews, and ultimately wrap up and ideally issue the tax credits certificates before the end of the year. Within the next few days, the open Q&A period will open on the EDA's website. It will include a viewable form of the application, so not yet fillable, but the opportunity to be able to put that in front of you to help understand the mechanics of it, and the opportunity for us to engage with you if you have any practical questions on that piece. We'll be including the FAQ that has already been compiled, and that we appreciate the chance to engage with corporations, your consultants, and advisors over the next month or so before the application period actually opens, and we'll include those new questions in the FAQ as they come available. We will third include the purchase agreement in the publicly available materials, so that you as a purchasing corporation or your client in this case may understand what is the obligation through the participation with this program. I think we've done our best to distill out throughout the discussion here. Ideally, number one, a corporation will put forward a meaningful tax credit purchase, and you will walk away with those tax credits to be able to offset your tax liability in the current privilege period or in the next seven privilege periods. And two, we hope we drew out the fact that compliance in this program is specifically related to the strategic component of the corporation's bid. We are again stress, we're putting in as much work as we can up front, and we appreciate the dialogue with each of you to be able to make sure we get it right at the outset. Assuming we do that, down the road, the compliance piece is well understood in advance. This is not a gotcha program. This is a program that is built to support your efforts as an important corporate citizen in the state of New Jersey, as well as helping those down the line, basically those early stage businesses that will benefit from the engagement and the support from your corporation, as well as from the investment dollars that will be allocated to them down the road. Okay. The application is scheduled to open on or about August 1st. That period will be open until approximately September 22nd. So it's a nearly 2-month period for corporations to, again, continue to evaluate their strategic commitment, the price they want to put forward, the opportunity to continue to ask questions from EDA staff, and the opportunity for us to support you to put forward your best application, a complete application, so that in October our team can set to work reviewing all of the bids put forward. Again, we'll be using the rubric that is available online already. We'll take a couple of weeks to conduct that review, and then be able to revert and secure best and final offers from corporations. Again, following that period. Ideally, we'll approach the EDA's board in November with recommendations for approval. Following that approval period, bid contracts will be executed, transferred over to taxation, and we'll be able to secure the certificates for corporations to be able to use again immediately or to carry forward. Ideally, again, we'll have the approvals wrapped up before the end of the current year. Before I turn it over to next steps, I appreciate the chance to highlight for you in the upper left corner, there's a non-binding indication of interest survey that is open. It is on EDA's website, and we appreciate the chance to gather any feedback from you and understand what is your potential interest from a dollar perspective in the program. We're very candid. This is the first time we're launching this program. We've gotten some good feedback through this channel and through other conversations with folks so far. So we're starting to get a good sense of where is the appetite and from whom and to what degree. So again, we appreciate continued insight through that channel, or of course, feel free to send us a note, or we're glad to have a conversation and talk about it down the road. Next steps in the process, again, we appreciate the chance for you to complete the indication of interest survey. We have had some great calls with corporations so far since the program was approved in April. We continue to have first-time conversations, And starting soon, actually already started, we appreciate the chance for follow-up conversations, and we appreciate the chance to receive emails. We appreciate folks using the NJIEF@NJEDA.com mailbox to submit questions. And of course, we're happy to respond through your strategic sector lead as well if you've had a conversation with that group already. The current virtual information session is being recorded and will be posted on the website. That will be viewable publicly from here going forward. Again, the focus from here is to hone in on the strategic commitment from a financial perspective. What is the financial bid that could be put forward? Keep an eye out for the FAQ and the additional documentation that will be posted in July, and recognize the application will open in August. We must have the application as well as the refundable deposit before the deadline. But we're, again, happy to talk through that and understand any potential challenges you might have. So with that, we're glad to wrap up the presentation with you today and take any Q&A. I noticed there's about 3 in the chat down below, but of course, Caitlin, please do open up for any other questions. Appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Sure. Why don't you take a look at those questions, if you can reiterate them verbally and make sure that they were answered, because I know some of them were probably answered along the way. I can do that. And if anybody else is interested in asking a question verbally, they can click the raise their hand feature, and I can allow them to participate that way.
And Caitlin, as we're queuing these up, one Q&A that popped into my mind that I wish I had expressed more clearly is around the idea of a refundable deposit. So there's no application fee related to this program. However, bidders need to put forth 10% of their total purchase offer in the form of a refundable deposit to participate. This is going to be capped at, I believe it's 500,000, right, Tim? The deposit.
Yep, 500.
But we can't review applications until we receive those deposits. So that's kind of the ticket to the dance so that we can begin reviewing. And if we end up if for some reason bidders aren't able to go forth with their bids or something unforeseen happens, that it is a refundable deposit, so it will be refunded.
Okay, great. Thank you, Alexander. So I do see that there are a few questions in the Q&A. Caitlin, thanks for the direction there. So I'll start from the top, of course. Does a New Jersey startup apply directly to the Evergreen Fund to receive an investment? Yes, that will. I apologize, I'm getting ahead of myself. The focus of the discussion today, of course, is on the tax credit auction. What will happen is, following the raise of the dollars through the tax credit auction, we'll then have the dollars to deploy and begin to invest. The next step is for venture capital firms to apply to become qualified venture capital firms with the EDA. Those venture capital firms will be the applicants for the dollars down the road on behalf of the early stage or high growth businesses in the state. So one of the requirements for a business to receive dollars from the Evergreen program is that they are actually receiving investment from a qualified venture capital firm first, who will then apply and access the dollars from the Evergreen Fund through a special purpose vehicle. So hopefully that's a clarification. We anticipate we'll have another info session similar to this, but focused on the investment piece later this year, actually, probably in the fall, early fall. Second question, is there a minimum in value of strategic commitment given $500,000 bid for tax credits? So the minimum purchase price put forward would be, of course, the $500,000. We are not assigning I should say, instead of a value, a cost that's required for a strategic commitment. That is up to the corporation to put forward. I will draw out that one of the evaluation criteria in the program looks to understand the dollar cost ratio of the strategic commitment relative to the financial component or the financial bid. So that will receive a 1, 2, or 3 point value based upon that ratio. But again, that's one of 10 factors. The idea is that a corporation is putting forward a worthwhile commitment for themselves and for the innovation economy. We are not dictating what that dollar amount must be. The strategic commitment, again, is your ticket to the auction. It may be as something as simple as to reference one of the examples Alexander gave before, a corporate membership to the New Jersey chapter of Golden Seeds, or it may be a more complex, I'll say more robust strategic commitment of a corporation starting an incubator based in the state of New Jersey that will process or host 10 companies a year, which is a much more complex proposition. It's entirely open-ended and entirely up to you. But again, EDA staff is happy to work with you to help get more granular on this piece as we go ahead. So, second, can you couple this tax credit with other EDA programs such as Emerge? Potentially, yes. There is no prohibition in the regulations which directly preclude somebody from participating in other EDA programs. So absolutely, definitely speak with EDA staff, but it's essentially completely practical. So yes. Second question, understand point system regarding my prior question. Is the tax credit available to partners assuming a partnership entity participating? I think this question goes to the pass-through of the tax credits. You can feel free to correct me if I'm wrong here, but essentially the tax credit goes to the CBT payer in this case. So if there is a pass-through entity that does apply to the program, the credits would then pass through, assuming the ultimate buyer is a CBT paying entity. We very much appreciate the chance to engage with you today, to be able to highlight the program in totality, and then get more granular with you on the process, the policy, and the evaluation rubric. We are again looking to schedule conversations with companies through the open application period. So if you have not been contacted yet, we do appreciate the chance for you to reach out to us to set a time with EDA staff. We are again going to post additional information to the program in the coming week or two. So please keep an eye out for that, and we'll certainly email you when that information is available. Of course, please follow EDA on social media, because that's always a great opportunity for us to engage and be able to get information out to you. So again, thank you very much. We appreciate your time today and look forward to engaging.